name is Sylvia Meredith. I am at rest in God alone. My salvation comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I will never be shaken. How long will you threaten a man? Will all of you attack, as if he were a leaning wall or a tottering stone fence? They only plan to bring him down from his high position. They take pleasure in lying. They bless with their mouths, but they curse inwardly. Rest in God alone, my soul. My hope comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I will not be shaken. My salvation and glory depend on God, my strong rock. Rest in God alone. Men are only a vapor, exalted men an illusion. Weighed on the scales, they go up. Together they weigh less than a vapor. Put no trust in oppression or false hope in robbery. If wealth increases, pay no attention to it. God has spoken once, I have heard this twice. Strength belongs to God, and faithful love belongs to you, Lord, for you repay each according to his works. So, in my human development class, I learned about pre-operational thought, which is the cognitive capabilities of preschoolers. Pre-operational thought is just the name of the thought process that they use. I got to volunteer with preschoolers for about 4 hours every week this semester. One of the experiments, Jean Piaget, who was a very influential educational theorist, one of the experiments he suggested for observing pre-operational thought were the conservation of mass experiments. He suggested showing 2 balls of Play-Doh the same size to a preschooler and asking them which one's bigger, or are they the same size. Once the preschooler has verified that they are both balls are the same size, you roll one into a snake shape before their very eyes and ask the same question. Are these the same size, or is one bigger? Piaget said that a preschooler who is using pre-operational thought will say that the snake is bigger, while those who have matured in their thinking process will say that they're still the same size. Will understand the principles of conservation of mass. Indeed, during a game of Play-Doh with Henry Patrick, who is a 5-year-old that I volunteered with, I tried this experiment exactly as Piaget instructed, and the results were exactly as Piaget predicted. I rolled one ball into a snake, and with the biggest smile on his face, he said that that was definitely bigger than the other little ball. It was so cute. So, the next thing I am going to present on is about the French Revolution and the Estates General. Okay, I need to get some colors. Do we have any more colors?
Yes, we got lots of colors.
Oh, great.
No, stop.
Oh, don't use the green marker in your hand.
Not this one. Okay. Okay, that one works. Okay. I can't write the wrong date on here. I know this date very well, but I can't. I have to check. For this presentation, I will be covering the meeting of the Estates General, an important event in 1789 that began the French Revolution. When we begin, early in the year 1789, France is penniless. They have had this problem for quite some time. Bad weather has destroyed France's crops. France's indecisive coward of a king, King Louis XVI, had appointed and fired finance minister after finance minister. And this February, he does something rash and calls for a meeting of the Estates General. The Estates General was an advisory body for the king. France was under absolute monarchy. Legally, the Estates General had no governing power, but they had power whether or not it was written into a law. When you have that many important people making decisions together, that's going to carry a lot of influence. There are 3 estates. Officials were elected to represent them. During a meeting of the Estates General, these representatives met and argued, and each of these estates was allowed 1 vote when a decision was presented. The first estate was the clergy. Whoops. That was the church and the church officials. France was Catholic. The second estate was the nobility. That would be the aristocrats. And the third estate was everyone else. The peasants or the commoners.
That would be us.
That would be us. Also known as 96% of the population. The king wasn't in any of these 3 categories because the royal family were the people that the Estates General were advising. The Estates General had not convened since 1614, more than 100 years ago. The system was outdated, and as you can tell, it was not fair. If 96% of the population has 1 vote, and these 2, 3 to 4% were the ones exempt from taxes, 96% of the people tended to get, they were ganged up on somehow. Here we meet Abbe Sieyès, a member of the clergy, and his monumental pamphlet, What is the Third Estate? Gotta spell his name. He was part of the church. He was a member of the clergy. Like I said, he was an abbot. Abbé is the French term for that. His monumental pamphlet, What is the Third Estate, was, I guess it was technically propaganda. It was nice propaganda compared to what followed in the French Revolution. The explanation he gave of the Third Estate, its influence in society, its lack of influence in the government, and the influence it was looking for, was absorbed by the public. Publications of this pamphlet were found everywhere in France. At this point, the demands of the Third Estate were reasonable. Very reasonable. Give us some influence, they asked. The changes requested were not drastic. They asked first that the Third Estate be doubled. Though the Third Estate made up 96% of the population, they would have half of the delegates. The second reform went hand in hand with this first one. They asked that the votes instead of a voting system where each estate got a vote, their voting system would change to each person there got a vote. So they voted by head. Louis XVI agreed to only the first request and destroyed the entire purpose of these reforms. When the Estates General met in Versailles on May 5th, the room had twice as many super upset delegates. So what happened at this monumental meeting? Nothing. The king slighted the Third Estate basically less than 5 minutes in, and the meeting collapsed. And without any permission from the king, the Third Estate abandoned ship invited the other two estates to join them, and formed what they called the National Assembly. But when the National Assembly showed up to meet several days later, they discovered that Louis XVI had locked them out. This leads us to three monumental events. The beginning ripples, is this gonna work? The beginning ripples in the French Revolution. On the 20th of June, the National Assembly swore an oath in their new meeting spot, an indoor tennis court. The delegates promised not to adjourn until they drafted a constitution. On the 14th of July, after a totally false claim that the 15 or so prisoners in the Bastille were being killed, a massive mob of French citizens stormed the heavily fortified French prison, decapitated the commander, and carried his head around on a pike. And on the 17th of July, the Great Fear began. A wave of terror and violence that swept through the entire country of France. It was spurred by ridiculous fears of French aristocratic conspiracies, like, oh, the aristocrats, they destroyed all our crops on purpose. Oh, the aristocrats, they're sending mercenaries to kill us all. The Great Fear did not end until about August 3rd and was a model for the chaos and violence that would soon embody the French Revolution.
Any questions for Sylvia?
Yeah.
And somewhere in there, the Queen said let them eat cake.
Yes, Queen Marie Antoinette was a sheltered Austrian queen. One of the reasons that France was broke.
Yeah.
And the only reason, I don't think anyone in France blamed anyone but the queen and the nobility for France's terrible financial state. She spent gobs and gobs of money on parties and dresses and keeping up with the Paris fashion and inventing the Paris fashion. And indeed, it paid took a heavy toll on France. But you know what might have sealed the deal for France's economy was their decision to sponsor the American Revolution, not Marie Antoinette at all.
Yeah. That cost them a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. But they're not going to blame the Americans, they're going to copy the Americans.
What is the Independence Day of France?
Bastille Day.
Bastille Day.
Bastille Day.
It's July the 14th. So, yes.
So that tennis court thing happened after those other two things?
No, it happened in June.
Oh,
Not
so
July.
it said July.
Happened in June.
Is the tennis court famous? Could you go and see it?
I don't know if you can go and see it. It was in Versailles.
It's probably still there. The grounds,
Probably still
somewhere
there.
on the grounds.
Versailles is still palaces and
museum.
yeah.
So I'm sorry. So the government that resulted after that, as it came as a result of the revolution, is still the same French government that we have today?
No.
No.
And the government during the French Revolution was super complicated. The National Assembly ended up dividing into a bunch of clubs, and during the Great Fear, which was when everyone was guillotined, which is the exciting part of the revolution, the Jacobins, yeah,
Unless you were an
the Jacobin,
aristocrat.
oh, yeah. Unless you were, yeah. Although, most of the people guillotined were peasants. There are only so many aristocrats to get rid of. There are a ton of people who were killed. But it was chaos. It was it was hundreds of screaming delegates every time it met. And very opinionated. It was full of debates and unwise decisions because of the structure, and the entire government was destroyed when the revolution ended with Emperor Napoleon. So,
Was there really a man of Lafarge that said off with their heads? Maybe you haven't read Tale of Two Cities.
I have not.
Yeah. There's a character there. Said off with their heads.
So yeah, everybody was the same because Napoleon abolished it. People never.
All right, at this time, we have a very brief but exciting announcement. Sylvia has graduated. We're so excited. So with that, we are finished. If you have more questions, we'll get their posters out and you can keep asking. Are there any other questions you want to ask to the whole group, or why don't we have all the Meredith kids come up here real quick?
Thank you. I know everything about it.